Hi, and welcome to Cooking Without Kidneys. I'm here to help you not just survive, but thrive through food while you're on the dialysis machine. My name is Chef David Pollack. I've been cooking for 30 years. I'm also a kidney recipient. I'm a 9.5-year kidney recipient, and I spent 4.5 years on the dialysis machine, so I understand exactly what you guys are going through. So my goal is to actually give you food, give you things that you could have, that you could eat, that you can enjoy, that will satisfy you the same way as, say, using tomatoes instead of tomatoes. Today we're working with roasted red peppers. So we're going to be making a roasted red pepper and smoked Gouda bisque, a beef bolognese, no tomatoes, and doing a grilled stuffed apples with angel food, which is a combination of honey and ricotta with some spices. So come and join us and let's do this. So we're going to actually get started with roasting our peppers, and as I said in the beginning, we're actually going to be making a bolognese, and we're actually not using any kind of tomato at all. Just because of how much potassium's in tomatoes by themselves. So we're going to take fresh peppers, and you can also get them jarred. All right, and we're going to just start off with roasting these. So there's two ways of doing it. The first way is over an open flame on your stovetop. The second way is actually in the oven. And I'm going to show you both. So we're going to start off with 2 peppers, dry. These have just been washed. There's no oil on them, and they're going right on top of the flame. And while those are cooking, we're actually going to take the rest of these peppers and just toss them in a little bit of canola oil. And they're going right into a 400-degree oven, and we're going to roast them for about 20 minutes. Now keep in mind, the ones on the open flame, you do have to watch a little bit more because we don't want them to turn white. We just want the skins to turn black. All right. So using a pair of tongs, we're just going to rotate them a little bit. Okay. And as you can see, the skins are starting to blister. All right. That's what you want. If they start to turn white on you, that means you're going to actually start charring the actual flesh underneath. And that's just not going to make a good eat. Okay. It's just going to make the pepper more bitter. So as you can see, our peppers are nice, and you can see all the char. This is all the skin. There's no white, which means that the flesh underneath did not get burned at all. We're just going to put these into ice water, and they're going to float a little bit, but that really doesn't matter, okay? Because as they sit in that cold, they're actually going to start to deflate. That air is going to come out of them. They're going to cool down, and once they're underneath the water, the skin's going to come off real simple. And I'll show you how to do that actually in a couple of minutes. So while this is sitting here, get this out of the way. We're going right into our soup. So we're actually going to use butter in our soup. Now, I really like the flavor that butter gives and it lends to different vegetables and how it brings things forward. Also, the fat content makes everything richer. You can use canola oil, you could use very light olive oil, or even like a safflower oil. I would say stay away from like avocado oils or things of that nature, because avocados themselves are high in potassium, and we want to kind of limit the amount of potassium that we're putting in our bodies. Okay, so we're going to first start off by melting 2 tablespoons of butter. It's just going to make the soup really nice and rich. One about medium-high heat. The cool thing is, because we're making a bisque, everything's going to be pureed. So a little rough chop is not going to make the difference in how soup looks or tastes. We're going to add our diced onions and our 2 to 4 cloves of garlic. We're going to let that sweat down in the butter. This is what I used to eat instead of like tomato bisque. If I was making myself a grilled cheese sandwich and I wanted soup and sandwich, instead of using tomatoes, this is the soup I would make for myself. And you could alter it however you want. You could add rice to it if you wanted to. You could add some fennel to it also, just to give it that little bit of, anise flavor. but it really is just a delicious way to add something to things that you're making. Now we're going to add our celery. And while this is sweating down, we're actually going to start working those roasted peppers that I did stovetop. So as you can see, you can buy them jarred, but usually you could get a pepper for, a pound of pepper for $1.99. So you could roast them all yourself at home. And as you can see, our peppers have deflated. They're actually underneath the water. So now we're just going to use our fingers, and it comes right off. You can use a towel if you want. You can rinse it under cold water and do this, but personally, you have it already in a bath, might as well use it. Okay, and seeding it, remember, we're pureeing this, so I'm not worried about dicing it. And both recipes, the peppers are pureed, so we're not really worried about that. And as you can see, they come right off. Now you can see they're nice and seeded. This all just goes, because we don't need this. As you can see, our onions, celery, garlic, they're getting nice and fragrant. The onions are starting to get translucent. We do not want them to brown, okay? We don't want to caramelize things for this recipe. And at this point, we're going to add our roasted peppers. A little bit of skin's not going to hurt. That little bit of char goes a long way. We're just going to let this sweat. Okay, while this is working, we're going to go right into making our aioli. All right, and as you can see, we're making a basil aioli, but traditionally aiolis have lemon in them. And like I said, we want to try to limit the amount of potassium we put in our body, so we're not going to use any lemon in this at all. We have fresh basil, our egg yolk, a little bit of Dijon mustard and garlic. We're using Bragg's liquid amino for our salt, so that way we're not, increasing the amount of sodium. Okay, I also have a little cider vinegar instead of lemon juice that we're going to use. And of course, canola oil. All right, so first things first, we want to start with our garlic. We have a couple, I like a lot of garlic in my aiolis. So we're using 2 tablespoons of garlic and our egg yolks. Dijon, and we only need about a teaspoon, just a little bit. Bragg's liquid amino for our salt. And cider vinegar. Give our soup a quick stir, give it a little check. Nice little flip. Yeah, you can smell how fragrant this is. Flavors are coming straight through. To this, we're going to add our wine, half cup of wine. And we're just going to let this cook down a little bit. And while that's cooking, we can actually get our aioli complete. So now the basil that I'm using, because we're pureeing it, doesn't have to be the nicest. It could sit for a day or two, if this is what you're using it for. We definitely just want that flavor in there. Close it, turn it on. And we just want this to buzz till smooth. And we're going to start with a half cup of canola oil. We could add more if we want it a little thicker, a little less if we want it a little thinner. That's the base of where I start things. So as you can see, we have our basil aioli over here. Okay, it's nice and thick and rich. Get that little bit of acid from the mustard and from the vinegar. The basil comes straight through. It's nice flavors. So we're going to just set this aside for the moment. And we're going to continue on with our soup. We're going to add our 1/4 cup of Bragg's liquid amino. And we're using chicken stock. Now, if you want to, you can use vegetable stock for this instead, if you want to keep it completely vegetarian. Personally, I think chicken stock for me has a little bit more flavor and a little bit more depth, but veg stock definitely works really well for this. And we're just going to let this cook down. Now, as this cooks down, the Bragg's liquid amino is going to bring the flavors out of everything that's in this pot. You know, I talked a little bit earlier about tomato soup, and tomato soup got me in trouble, a lot of trouble. Had a day where I decided I wanted to eat everything that I wasn't supposed to. So I had some avocados, some tomatoes, plantains. I finished off my day with a tomato soup with a grilled cheese with tomato and avocado. Woke up Monday morning with 104 fever and a potassium of 10. Now, for a point of reference, death row inmates, they inject with 7 parts per million potassium to kill them. I was almost double that. So I actually literally almost killed myself with potassium. That's why it's so important that if you are on dialysis, that you kind of stick with the foods that are lower in potassium, or you just minimize the amount. Like having a slice of tomato on a sandwich, not a big deal. Having a tomato bisque with that can definitely cause you some issues. So we're just going to let this cook down just a little bit more. But as you can see, you could smell the wine in it, you could smell the roasted peppers in it, as well as the onions and garlic. Okay, we're going to let that reduce just a little bit more. Now I'm actually going to puree this before I add my half and half to it. Okay, because once I add my half and half and add that cream to it, it's actually going to start to cook down, thicken, and I don't want it to caramelize. So we're sliding the Robot-Coupe out of the way, bringing our blender forward. And for this, I'm actually going to remove the top from the blender. Okay, I actually want steam to be able to release from it, so that way it doesn't build pressure and can start shooting out the sides. So nice and hot, going right into our blender. And we're actually not going to get rid of this pot. We're actually going to pour it back into this to cook it down just a little bit more after we get it all pureed. We're just going to take a towel, cover it, turn this on. Alrighty, look at that. See how thick that is? Okay, that's the consistency we want. When we add the half and half, that'll actually make it even that much richer. Going right back over the heat. And now we're going to add our half and half. That's about a half a cup. Now we're not going to add any more salt to this. We have plenty from the liquid aminos, and that's actually cooked down into it, so it's going to intensify the flavors. Okay, but what I do like to do is I also like to add just a touch of smoked paprika, because that actually helps to bring out the smoked Gouda, and just a little bit of red pepper flake, because who doesn't like a little spice? Now, I like to scrape my smoked Gouda before I add it to a soup, just so it melts nice and evenly into it. And right here, I got about half a cup of it grated. Okay, we're just going to do a little bit more. I like it cheesy. And this is going right in here. Okay. We're just going to let that stir. We're going to melt that in. And then we're going to take it over to our counter to start to plate. So before we get into plating our soup, I actually want to pull my roasted red peppers so that way we could actually check them and see where they're at. Oh yeah. So as you can see, 20 minutes in, okay, skins are like already peeling right off of them, 400 degrees. These guys are ready to go. We're just going to set them aside to cool for the moment, and then we're going to start plating our soup. As you can see, it's nice and rich and thick. A nice 8-ounce ladle, top it off a little bit. Always love giving a little extra. Now, I personally like using a spoon. You could put this into a squeeze bottle. You could pour it however you want to do it. But I like just to drizzle a little bit all around, just so we have that flavor and everything. And of course, got to have a little fresh basil with it. If there's already basil in there, a little bit of fresh basil right on top. And for fun, I like to add lots of cheese to my food. So just a little bit on top, just like that. And this is how I actually complete my roasted pepper bisque with basil aioli and smoked Gouda. Okay guys, now we're moving on into our bolognese, and me personally, I like using linguine with it. The cool thing is that we could set this up a day ahead of time, get it cooked off, and actually store it in batches in our freezer, so that way if you just need something quick and you don't have a lot of time and you're on your way home, either coming home from dialysis and don't have the energy to do it, or on your way to dialysis and just need something quick, you know, this is a great way to go. Okay, so let's get started. As you can see, I got my onions, my celery, and my carrots and garlic all minced and ready to go. We're using Bragg's Liquid Amino as our salt source. We also are going to be using red wine in this and beef stock. And of course, we have our roasted red peppers here that we did in the oven, pureed, cleaned, ready to go. So now we're going to take it over to the oven and get this done. Okay, we're getting into the beef bolognese. Now, me personally, I like using a 90-10 blend, 90% lean beef, just for a simple fact is then I don't have to drain any of the excess fat out. It's not super greasy and super heavy, all right? And we're just going to use about 2 ounces of butter. And we're going to add our beef directly to this. So we want everything to kind of come up around the same time. So we're going to brown our beef, and once our beef is brown, we're going to actually add our pasta to the water and get that cooked off. Because by the time that pasta is cooked, our bolognese will be done. Just so you all can see this. There's not a lot of fat, there's not a lot of juice coming off this beef because of how lean it is. Okay, so we're not going to have a heavy, greasy bolognese. It actually will be thick and rich. Now that our beef is mostly all browned, I'm going to add our onions directly to it, carrots, celery, and of course, a couple cloves of minced garlic. Now, I actually don't add any oil to my pasta at all. Normally what I would do on a regular basis is just add salt to it so the salt cooks into it and actually brings out the flavor of everything else. Kind of want it to taste nice and briny. So our water's nice and hot. And we're going to drop our pound of pasta right into it. Cover it back up, and we're going to let that come to a boil. Now, I like adding red wine to my sauce, no matter whether I'm using tomato or using the peppers. It actually helps to cut the sweetness and actually helps to cut a little bit of the acidic nature of the tomatoes. Going to add our wine to this. You know, I like Bragg's Liquid Amino over using like a low sodium soy. Even though the flavors are very, very similar, you actually get a lot of the, and there is some more antioxidant value to the Bragg's Liquid Amino. Smell of everything cooking together, you know, really hits home with me. It's comfort food. Now we're going to add our beef stock to this. You don't need to use the whole amount. Actually, you can pick and choose how much you want depending on how thin or thick you like your sauce. So once we add the roasted pepper puree, once we add the half and half and all the herbs, all the aromatics, those flavors are going to come through, but the peppers will actually help it thicken as well as the fat from the half and half. So I got about 3 cups here. I think I'm just going to start off with 1 cup's worth. We're going to let this come up to a full simmer again, and then we're going to add our puree and our half and half, and we're going to let this go for about 5 or 10 minutes. Now that we have this back up to a full simmer, we're actually going to add our roasted peppers. And this is about 8 peppers that I pureed here, that I roasted and pureed. And we're going to add our half and half. Now while this is all simmering together, we're actually going to get our dessert going. So come on back over here to our counter and we're going to get this started. We are actually making Angel's Food stuffed apples. So what Angel's Food really is actually a light whip of ricotta and honey with a little bit of usually lemon juice, but we're not using any lemon juice in this. We don't want to add that much potassium to the things that we're doing. We're actually going to use just the zest over top to give it that flavor, okay? And we're going to use a couple different spices, but first things first, I already took the core out and grill marked the apples. Okay, and we're just going to take these and pop them straight into the oven. 350 degrees until they're hot through. You can finish them off on the grill. Okay, that's not an issue. I just find that it's easier to control in the oven, especially texture-wise. We don't want it so soft that the apples blow up and fall apart. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take care of our ricotta. Okay. So as you can see, this is just, 1 pint of ricotta. I have about a half cup of honey here, and we're not going to use it all, okay? And it doesn't matter the honey you use. So literally, this is all we're going to do. This is a real basic, simple dessert that doesn't take a long time to make. And now we're going to go over here and we're going to toast off our almonds, check our pasta, and our bolognese. Come on over, let's take a look. Okay, so now we're going to finish up our pasta and bolognese before we pull our apples out and stuff them. We're also going to take our slivered almonds and just toast them a little bit over a little bit of heat after we pull off the bolognese. So for right now, we're going to go into our bolognese first. Okay, as we can see, it's been 10 minutes simmering. It's nice and thick and rich. All right, and just smells amazing. But you know what? It's missing a component, and actually, it's not a real bolognese until you add your herbs to it. I love herbs. Parsley, oregano, basil, thyme. We're also going to add a little bit of mint into this also. Believe it or not, mint and basil are cousins and work really well together. Okay, I already have them all chopped up in a bowl. We're just going to add it, stir that in. And we're just going to let that cook a couple of minutes. It's not going to take a lot of time. Pasta. Oh yeah, look at that. Perfectly cooked through. I'm going to take this right off the back burner. We're just going to strain it. Now, because I'm plating this right away, I'm actually not going to chill it. I'm not going to rinse it. I don't want that extra starch to go away. I actually want all that there, so I'm just going to toss it with a little bit of canola oil. You could use olive oil too. Got to try this bolognese, make sure the flavor's right. It's nice and thick, rich. The herbs, you could smell them. That's what it should taste like. Move this over for plating. And now we're going to toast our almonds. Now you don't need any oil, you don't need to add any seasoning to the almonds. We just want to get a nice little bit of color to them. That's going to bring out the natural oils that are in there, and it'll give it a nice, roasted, toasted flavor. For this, we don't need the pan hot ahead of time. Okay, we don't want to scorch the almonds. We want them to come up to temp with the pan itself. We want to keep them moving over top of the heat so that way they don't burn. So with almonds, you actually have something else that you need to watch out for, and that's phosphorus. The 3 dangers of dialysis: potassium, sodium, and phosphorus. Okay, how you deal with phosphorus? There's phosphorus in cheese, some fruits, almonds. Okay, that can actually weaken your bone density. It could actually seep the calcium out of your bones. So the way that you combat that is you actually take calcium tabs every time you eat. And I mean, I'll be honest, when I was on dialysis, I used to take 2 Tums before every meal just to absorb, the excess phosphorus in any food that I ate. So that's never been a real worry of mine. They did a couple bone density scans when I was on dialysis, and never an issue. Never an issue. As you can see, our almonds are getting nice and toasted off. Okay, they're starting to get a little bit of color. You can smell the oils and the fragrance coming off of them. And now we're going to take them over to our counter and start plating. Okay, so now we're getting into plating. Our pasta is still nice and hot. Just toss with a little bit of oil so that way it doesn't stick together. And we're just going to twist a little bit right in the bottom of the bowl. Our bolognese. Now you could actually take this, put it into containers with the pasta and the sauce, throw it in the freezer. It'll definitely keep. Alrighty. Give it a little bit of wipe on the interior, make it nice and clean. Now we're going to grate a little Parmesan right over top. And our fresh herbs. We're just going to use a little bit of shredded basil, a little bit of parsley, and of course, a couple of fresh leaves right over top. All right, and over here, our apples and ricotta are ready. Okay, so these apples got grill marked really nice. They went into the oven. As you can see, the skin's lost a little bit of color. They're just cooked through. They'll be nice and crisp. We're just going to take a little bit of our honey ricotta mixture. Now you can pipe this. You know, you can even, if you want to, you could thin it out with a little bit more honey and actually do it in a squeeze bottle. Me personally, I just like to spoon it right over top. Okay, nice and rich. So you're going to get, you know, a little bit of sweetness and tart from the apple. You're definitely going to get sweet from the ricotta. And now let's freshen it up. We're just going to use just a little bit of lemon zest on this. Okay. Remember, just the zest, we're not using any juice. A little bit of chocolate. And chocolate is the same deal because chocolate's actually high phosphorus and it's medium high for potassium. So you can't use a heck of a lot, but just this little bit. A little pinch of our toasted almonds right on top. And a dusting of cinnamon. Just a little bit of spice. It's fall going into winter. This is just a nice topper to the meal, nice ender. So please enjoy. Hey guys, thank you for joining us today. I'm so glad you were here to do everything from the roasted red pepper bisque all the way down to our Angel's Food stuffed apples. Okay. Next time, we're going to be playing with kale. We're going to actually be playing with potatoes. I'm going to show you how to take potatoes and make them safe for someone who's on dialysis. So won't you join me? Thank you and have a great night.